Karl Rove was right by President Bush's side on that day in 2001. He's joined tonight by Congressman Dan Crenshaw, who was in high school on September 11th, but in whom the desire to become a Navy SEAL deepened and took root in him on that day. He went on to serve in both of the wars that followed. Gentlemen, thank you very much. It's great to have both of you with us tonight. Karl, when you look at that dramatic contrast in those numbers of patriotism, and I can't watch that video of President Bush on the mound without getting that chill. It makes the hair stand up on my arms when I watch that still today, 18 years later. Where are we headed based on all of this?
Well, like you, that was an extraordinary moment. I think that was an extraordinary moment. Remember, he's wearing like a flak jacket underneath his windbreaker, so he's carrying 40 pounds of weight on him. Secret Service didn't want him to go out there and do that, and then he threw the strike. When he came back to the owner's box, he walked in the door with, I have to admit, a little bit of a swagger and said, "I gave him the heat." Now that was an extraordinary moment, and we've drifted away from it. And the only way we're going to come back to it is to stop beating ourselves up as a country and find a way to reach across the partisan and regional and other dividing lines in our country and recognize that people with whom we disagree are not our enemies, but our fellow countrymen, and find a way to restore some level of civility to our political and civic discourse in this country. Social media has not helped that process. The increasing lack of trust in the media has not helped that process. But ultimately, it's going to be solved by two things: leadership that calls upon the better angels of our natures, as James Madison said, and the ordinary good common sense of the American people reasserting itself.
Dan Crenshaw, your thoughts?
And I agree with everything Karl said. It's unfortunate that we've gotten to this point, right? Years ago, it didn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. You were still proud of your country, and that started to change over time. And I think as Americans, too many people have started to see the imperfections of America and our imperfections in foreign policy as a sign that America is inherently bad and that you should no longer be proud of your country. And I fundamentally disagree with that notion. We should not need a 9/11 to bring us together. We shouldn't need the anniversary to bring us together. We should still be proud of our country. We're the greatest country that has ever lived. We are responsible for the most prosperity and human good that has ever been created. And we should be proud of that fact and talk about it more.
Yeah. I want to put up a couple things on the screen. This is Chris Pratt, the famous actor, in a T-shirt that says "Don't Tread on Me." He was slammed by some on social media, which you mentioned, which I think is behind a lot of the evils that tear us apart these days, unfortunately, for just wearing that T-shirt. Then you've got the Nike Betsy Ross flag sneaker, which had to be pulled instantly because it had an American flag on the back of it that Colin Kaepernick believed was racist and oppressive. I mean, Karl, it's a very uphill battle, and I'm not sure where the leadership comes from that you're talking about that begins to make a difference in this kind of environment.
Yeah, well, the leadership starts with us, and I think Dan is absolutely right about the necessity of us talking about the greatness of America. There is an element in our country that really does want to run down America, that really does say things like somebody who did something, and the symbol of our American independence is a symbol of racism. And what we need to do is to express pride in America and its role in the world. I happened to be at a conference recently, a very diverse group: small business people, healthcare professionals, hospital people, insurance people, and I got a question that allowed me to sort of opine about one area in which we're criticized, climate, where I said America is the only major industrialized country in the world that's reducing the absolute level of greenhouse gas emissions. And I have to admit, I got carried away and said, I'm sick and tired of people running down our country when our country is providing such an example of leadership, and the crowd went wild. Now, that wasn't my oratory. That's the fundamental sense that's in the heart of most Americans. Our country is a great country, and we need to stand up for it.
I mean, I remember 9/11, there were flags everywhere for, I don't know for how long, a year,
months.
More than that.
Yeah.
Months, perhaps. People had them on their cars everywhere. Now the flag has become this sort of, it's a little bit weaponized in the debate that's going on right now, Dan. It's sort of seen as, for some people, it's seen as like a symbol of President Trump, a symbol that you're a conservative or Republican. And it really, I mean, that's something that is sad for the country. I mean, it clearly is something that we should all be able to get behind, regardless of our political stripes.
Right. And, you know, there's not that many things that bring us together as Americans. There's not that many things that make us Americans, okay? It's not the color of our skin. It's not our religion. It's not ethnicity. It's not even necessarily geographic area. That's changed over time, too, right? It is an understanding that we have certain ideals in our founding that brought us together. This idea that all men are created equal. This idea that government is there to protect your inalienable rights, okay? And that's what makes us American. It is not different colors of skin. It is the red, white, and blue. It is things like the national anthem. It is things like the Pledge of Allegiance. It is our American flag. Those are the symbols and ideas that bring us together, and we have to remind ourselves of that. We're in a culture war right now, as you've been indicating, and this is new, and we have to confront it, and we have to talk about why America is good and why we should be proud of our country.
And we need to do it in our schools, too. I mean, there are schools where, you know, wearing a flag or, you know, having a flag day is sort of considered a controversial subject, which I just think is so reprehensible. And we need to get past all of that garbage, honestly. Thank you very much, you guys. Karl Rove. Yeah, final thought,
we
sure.
shouldn't let this moment pass without thanking Dan Crenshaw as the greatest generation that saved the world in World War II. Dan represents the best of the 9/11 generation that rose up to fight Islamic terrorism.
Well put, and thank you for saying it, and thank you for your service, Dan Crenshaw, and all the other men and women who were inspired after 9/11 to sacrifice so much to keep our country safe. Very good point. Thank you very much, Karl.